These, when you discuss these, you have experience in both the Zen tradition and also the Dzogchen tradition. So, mind itself is Buddha is the literal translation of Semni Sangye, which is a very common phrase you find in the Mahamudra and Dzogchen schools. And then even ordinary mind, I was struck that this is in Zen because you have the Tamelgi Shepa in Dzogchen, right? And also some of that used by the Kajupas like Karmapa, Ramjun Dorje. So it's extraordinary how even in terms of the terms, the words, they're so strikingly similar. What is your take on the connection between Zen and Dzogchen? You know, of course, a lot of Tibetans allege that Dzogchen is an adaptation of Chinese Chan or some Chinese system and often criticized it as not being authentic Indian Buddhism.
Yes, yeah. I think very interesting, especially modern scholarly work on looking at the roots of Chan in China and Dzogchen in Tibet, and seeing a lot of crossover there. And Sam Van Schaik is one of the scholars who's particularly looking into early roots of Dzogchen and Chan, and he's got a book called Tibetan Zen, actually. Early Chan texts, but written in Tibetan, found in Dunhuang caves and so on. But practically speaking too, I think there's very similar, and like this ordinary mind is one example. Sometimes they use some of the same metaphors. Like I was happy to find that Baijiang, one of the early Chinese Chan ancestors, actually the disciple of Matsu, used this metaphor of zazen, of meditation, like writing on water. So if you're writing words on water, they immediately disappear. They leave no trace at all. And that metaphor comes up in the Dzogchen tradition sometimes too. So it may be just coincidence, but maybe actually, people were talking with each other early on, and they're great metaphors. Of course, the clouds blocking the sun comes up a lot in Chinese Chan and Japanese Zen too. It's a metaphor for how our dualistic consciousness temporarily obscures the sun of Buddha nature. And then many other similarities between Zen and Dzogchen. For example, sudden awakening, the emphasis on it doesn't have to be a gradual path. Of course, that fits in nicely with Tantra also, which is kind of mixed in with Dzogchen. They're kind of inseparable now in Tibetan system. And I think there was some early, mingling of Tantra in East Asia along with Chan also. But so there's emphasis on suddenness and directness, and without a lot of conceptual study and investigation being needed, as was usually the case in earlier Chinese traditions too. And also the emphasis on lineage and the direct transmission of student to disciple is strongly emphasized in both Zen and Dzogchen. And the non-duality of Buddhas and sentient beings. And
another metaphor that I again found quite striking, and this, of course, is not just with Dzogchen or Mahamudra, but the whole sort of Tibetan tantric traditions, the use of the term great light by Ingo Kokogon. I mean, it's almost equates with yourself, clear light that's so luminosity that's so pervasive in Tibetan Buddhist traditions.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, a lot of emphasis on light in Zen. and which reminds me of a nice story about light. And this would also see what you think about this story being a kind of correlation to the display of awareness in the Dzogchen tradition, Rigzao, where everything that we perceive is ultimately just the manifestation or display, radiance of awareness itself. So the story is that Yun Men, another one of the great classic Chinese Zen ancestors, said to the assembly of monks, "Everybody has a light, but when you look for it, you can't see it. It's dark and obscure. Everyone has a light, but if you look for it as some objective thing, you can't. It's just darkness. You can't see it." And then he asked the assembly, "What is everyone's light?" And the assembly of monks was speechless. Nobody could say anything. So Yun Men answered on their behalf, "The kitchen and the temple gate." So it's, at first it sounds like one of these strange, just like most Zen koans sound very strange. But I hear this as a kind of a Rigzao koan. We can't see the light in ourselves directly as some object, but everything that we see, supposedly outside ourselves, the kitchen and the gate, he was maybe could see them outside the window. Everything we see is our light.
Yeah. And in fact, if you don't see, you will probably have the the experience of seeing.
Yes, not seeing is seeing.
Yeah, I like this idiom, the scenery of the fundamental ground. And you're talking about Rixel. Here we have the Kunshi, this is not the Kunshi, Alaya Vijnana Kunshi, but I think the Dzogchen Kunshi, the ground. And the scenery of the ground is a much more beautiful metaphor. So the kitchen and the gates and everything sort of becomes the scenery, or is included in the scenery of the fundamental ground.
Exactly.